Hello and good evening, everyone. Happy Tuesday night. It has been a whirlwind couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of months, and yet here I am back with more inspiration for you and here to keep you crafting and all of that fun stuff. So, hello, Darlene, my friend. All of you are my friends. Make sure you say hello. Let us know how you're doing. Thank you if you're taking time away from the hockey game. I know I had a couple of people saying that they're going to have to catch us on the replay because they're watching the hockey game.
Yeah, I have to be down here.
And yet Matt has to be here taking care of all of us. So thank you, Matt. We won't keep you super long. He's just being silly. All right, so tonight, as people are joining in, um, fresh off of Scrap Fest, we are going to do something a little bit different. Well, I guess not really different. It's Learning Live. Learning Live, and I thought one of the fun things I could share with you tonight is the TCW layered stencils. And they're kind of neat, and they're not going to show up super well on the camera, white on white and all of that. The way that TCW does a lot of their layered stencils is they actually have all four panels on one piece of plastic, mylar, whatever you want to call it. And let me see if I can see how right up here.
There we go. That's better.
There, the one thing I can tell you, and again, it's probably not going to translate well here on the camera, is that there is a number 1, a number 2, a number 3 down here, and a number 4 etched right into the mylar. So that way you know what order to use your stencils in. And you know what? This one is a beautiful mountain scene. I think I've shown my sample before, but here, just to give you a sneak peeky of what this is going to look like, it's this beautiful lake and mountain scene. Now, we do also have in the store a forest scene that has a deer in amongst the trees, and there are at least 2 more scenes coming. Our order from TCW with all the brand new luscious TCW stencil butter colors, it just shipped today. So we hope to have them by the end of the week or early next week. But anyways, I thought it would be fun to show you 4 different ways that you can use this stencil. And when I say it's 4 different ways, I'm going to say that it is 4 different results. Some of the steps will be the same, so you may see me do the same thing a couple of times in a row, but you want repetition is never a bad thing. So we are going to start just by doing some basic inking with these stencils. Now I have chosen tonight to use Distress Oxide. With stencils, you are more than welcome to use any kind of ink that you would like. I'm going to show you one of the options where we're going to create this on black cardstock. So that's the main reason why I'm using oxide, because I know it will show up well on that black paper. And just to go over my colors, I've got Speckled Egg, Stormy Sky, Chipped Sapphire, and then Black Soot. I have also grabbed Pearl White stencil butter, Denim stencil butter, which ironically is a fairly close match, maybe more to the Chipped Sapphire than the Stormy Sky. But some of Jamie's colors do match Distress colors. I asked her today if she had a list of what those colors matched, and she says, well, I kind of know in my head, but I've never written them down, and I only have it for some. So she's going to work on a list for us, because sometimes that helps when we are using a combination of butters and ink, and black tie is the third one. So I've got those 3 different stencil butters. I've got some blending tools. I have a black Copic marker and a white gel pen. I am also going to do a version using this sweet little guy. He is our new Llama Love stamp set, which is a free gift with purchase of Lawn Fawn products for the next week. So without further ado, I think, I'm just going to get into it. I do have 4 different results that we're going to work on, and we will just talk a little bit about, well, all the things as we go through. So I'm going to start just with a piece of white smooth cardstock, and I like to tape it down if I can on my surface. I'm just using my Sizzix silicone mat, my multimedia mat. Uh, for those of you who know me, know that I'm not usually messy. You can see that my mat is pretty well loved, so I think you should be impressed. I'm just going to pull some of my best ever craft tape, and I'm actually just going to put it in a loop on the back. And I'm going to keep that handy so that I can do all the other ones. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with layer 1, and I'm actually going to go ahead and do that on all 4 cards. And that's going to be using the speckled egg. Now, again, probably hard to tell here on the camera. It's not focusing. But there is also an etched line that is the A2 size that will help you line up with your papers. Actually, it looks like it is bigger than there's smaller than an A2. So I'm just going to have to gauge my my borders and my boundaries and trim it down after the fact. So let me get into blending here. I'm getting out all my foams. I do prefer to use foam instead of brushes for my oxide inks because I find that the pigment in the oxide, not that one, tends to gum up my brushes a little bit. I am having trouble seeing comments here tonight, folks, so if I happen to miss it, I will come back afterwards and answer any questions you may have. All right, so crouch that up just a little bit here. So I'm going to work on panel number 1. Right here, I've just got everything lined up with my paper underneath, and I'm just going to use my blending tool. I like the silicone mat too because I can put my ink here and keep it from moving. The silicone tends to hold it in place. Out of habit, I tend to hold it as well, but I'm going to get lots of ink here, and then, you know what? Just to be safe, let's just tack this down as well.
You're stalling.
Matt says I'm stalling. I'm not stalling. I'm just getting prepped. All right, so I'm going to start on the plastic and roll it onto my surface. This is the lightest color that we are using tonight. And wow, that turned out really well. And I'm going to be careful down here around the little tree line so that my tool doesn't catch and so that it doesn't lift. But let me just lightly blend into those spots there. And that is just so easy to do layer number 1. Now, since I know I'm doing 3 others, I am not going to worry about cleaning my stencil just yet. Let me just lift this up. Look at that. So pretty. That's layer number 1. So I'm going to put that up here. I'm going to grab another piece of cardstock and we're going to do the same thing. This first one always takes a little bit longer because you're doing all your prep. But all of our starting steps are going to be the same. So this layer with the speckled egg is going to be the same. It's when we get into some of the finishing steps that things are going to change up and just show you different ways that you can use these scenic stencils to get a different look. All right. And you can build up more intensity by going over it again and again. I'm pretty happy with it, and I do love how the oxide gives really good coverage. Oh, Carol's asking about the crafting tool.
She said it just it's doing a good job.
It's doing a good job. These are our new matte sticks. These are the larger ones, designed by our friend Glenn in Calgary. And
Since Darlene is commenting about
yes, Darlene, that is the matte sticks we see. So our friend Glenn in Calgary started creating these and gave my mat permission to adopt it, and he and Charlie have refined it a little bit. So you can find these in the store. They are very affordable for your blending needs, and I like how it gives me a little bit more to hold. So it gives me a little bit more control with my blending than some of the other foam applicator thingies that are out there. All right, this is the third one on white. And again, same process, just doing that number one stencil, which is in the top left corner. Again, being mindful of these pointy little trees that are down here, but still wanting to get into all the spaces. Oh, that slid a little bit. Oh, okay, it's starting to slide, so I'm going to stop. That's number 3. I do have a teeny bit of a boo-boo here, but I can use that one for one of the techniques I'm going to show you, and I can correct that. And now I'm going to go on to black. And again, this is why I really love the oxides for working on black, because the ink is going to show up a little bit better than, say, a traditional ink. Actually, a traditional ink probably would not show up at all. All right, so I've got this down, and now here I go in with my speckled egg on the black. Now, because the oxide is a pigment ink, you do want to be mindful that you could get little fingerprints in there, so just be cognizant of that. You could hit it with a heat gun if you really wanted to. I think it's by the time we get back to these, they'll have enough time to dry. Now, I am now done with speckled egg, so I'm just going to take my microfiber cloth, and I'm also going to, while it's still in place, give my stencil a little bit of a wipe. Whoops. And clean it off as best I can. I will run this under the tap afterwards, but at least that gets the bulk of the ink off. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. So there is our black.
that's cool.
I really love how that's going to come together. All right, so I can put speckled egg to the side. I'm going to move on to the second layer. I'm going to keep that because you never know. I may have to go back, but I'm going to go back to layer number 1, piece number 1. Just make sure that sticks down. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing, moving one shade darker. And yeah, you can tell that I didn't clean this one super well the last time. There we go. Got it nice and clean now.
Clean your tools.
Clean my tools. So now I'm going to place layer number 2 over top of layer number 1. And because I've got my nice little border here, I'm also just eyeballing it to line up the edges so everything can line up perfectly. All right, and I'm going
You're
to
almost to know if that black cardstock is just regular cardstock.
the black cardstock, yes, just regular black cardstock. You could use the Vicky Bouton Foundation's paper. However, we're really just inking on it, so you do want something that is smooth. And I literally just grabbed a piece of black out of my cardstock pile next door here on the shelf and cut it down into that card panel. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. All 4 cards I'm going to do with Stormy Sky, which is our next darkest. And Just I like to start on the Mylar and go into the stencil. That way, if I've got too much on my blending tool, then it's not gonna get you those funny circle marks. Now, if you're really worried about the stencil slipping, you could use pixie spray in behind it. This one's a nice easy layer because it's just the one set of mountains. And let's give it a little bit more depth. And here's the magic. Ta-da! So there, it's starting to come together. If you're choosing your own colors, like maybe you don't want to use blue, you do want to have your darkest layer in the front. There is some color theory behind it. And am I down a little bit too far? Let me come up a little bit. If I remember correctly from my art classes, and please forgive me if I get it wrong because it's been a while, light recedes and dark comes forward. So when things are looking in the background, they tend to be lighter and softer in tone. Dark things tend to come to the forefront and really stand out. So as we are coming forward into our foreground of our scene, we do want the color to get darker. So say you were going to do this in, shades of purple, because I know I've got purple fans here in the audience. I would start with your lightest purple and then come forward with your darkest purples as you get closer. And there you go. So that's number 2. We're moving right along. Here's number 3.
You're going very slow.
I'm sorry, what, Matt?
You're going very slow.
Matt says I'm going slow. I thought I was going pretty fast. He just wants to get to the hockey game.
Yes.
Go, Leafs, go. All right, here's number 3. And we'll move to number 4, which is our black one.
No, okay.
Darlene, you're funny. He doesn't want to watch on replay. All right, and here we go with our blue. On the black. Easy peasy. See, nice easy coverage there. And I'm going to cover up Stormy Sky. I'm going to get my cloth to give it a bit of a wipe. And the reason why I do it with the stencil in place is because if it gets into the area where I've colored, that's okay, because that's the right color. All right. Now, this is interesting because the colors don't have the same difference on the black as they did on the white. So we'll just have to see how that comes out. And you know what? I'm sure there's things that we can do to tweak it. Already have ideas in place. All right, number 3. So number 3 is my dark blue. There we go. This one is chipped sapphire. So now I'm sliding down to the bottom left-hand corner of the stencil. I'm going to just match up my images. This one also has lots of trees, so you really do just want to be careful with that. My tape's not cooperating. And let's scooch that one up.
Everybody's picking on the Leafs.
Be nice to Matt, guys. They may not have won the whole thing, but you know what? Let's hope they win the first game. All right, so here we go. This is with chipped sapphire. And starting on the plastic, moving onto the paper. And then I can even pull some of that ink instead of going back to my ink pad, let's use it. Now, one thing you want to be careful, if you were doing this on, say, a full panel of paper, I would want to cover this up here just so I don't get ink where I don't want it. And all right. So
When does the difference start?
when does the difference start? It will start shortly. I need to get the base down. And here we go. And you know what? If you're doing mass assembly, this is a great way to do it as well. You just have all your pieces, do one layer at a time. All right, that's number 2. And yes, because I didn't line them up perfectly, there are some slight little white lines in between here, but we can either A, fix it, or B, embrace it as highlights, as reflecting sunlight. And as I often say, if someone is looking that closely at your project to find all those itty bitty flaws, then they don't deserve the card. All right, so here we go.
Margaret agreed with the enhancements. She thinks that the white lines are enhancements.
Excellent. White lines as enhancements, as outlines, as reflections. There we go. There's the white. And see, I mean, just super easy to be popping these colors in here. That speckled egg is really looking kind of green, which is cool. I think if we had gone in with tumbled glass, that might be too turquoise, but you know what? This is where you have fun playing with your color combinations as well. All right, let's see how chipped sapphire does on black. It's not showing super dark through the stencil, but sometimes you have to take the stencil away to see that magic revealed. All right. And done with chipped sapphire and my gloss. Just clean that up so especially when I go into that 4th layer, I am not, oh, you know what, that's not too bad.
Can't see that thing. Oh, there you go. A little bit of reflection now.
Yeah, so that blue does pop out a little bit from the black. And then we're going to do some enhancements to it. I may even use the stencil butter on this one just so that black pops out on the black itself. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to now move on to just doing 2 because 2 of these, the last 2, I'm going to use stencil butter. So let's just go back to number 1. I'm going to use my black soot ink. And so this one's going to be the one that is really just straight up. This is how it was intended. This is the most basic use of these stencils. And let's see what this looks like with black soot ink in place. Now, 2 things, well, first let's get it in place. Let's get it down. Make sure you're not covering up your birds. The tree line is not a perfect match, and that's okay. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this down here. Now, one other thing I'm going to do is this little edge here is very delicate. So I'm going to take a longer piece of tape just to hold it in place, more so that it doesn't move on me and it doesn't get torn, because you really don't want your stencil wrecked the first time you're going to use it, especially when you have 3 more to do. All right, so here I'm just going to use my black soot and let's fill it in here. Now I'm going to be gentle with those tree points. So I'm almost kind of pulling down as opposed to doing my traditional circular motion. I really don't want to catch the points of those trees. And honestly, this might be a situation where I would go to a darker black. The oxide black is a softer black, but you'll get the idea. All right, let's get these and get in all those little nooks and crannies. Build up your color. And then, of course, because I almost did it, don't forget all your birds. So I'm going to come back in here. Actually, this might be one where I want a smaller one. So we've got tiny matchsticks as well. So this is where I may want to use a tinier one so I can apply a little bit more detail, a little bit more pressure in those little spots. And I think that's it. Those are just spots on my stencil.
Your stencil's so dirty you can't even tell what's in it.
Dun, da, da, da. So at a very basic level, this is option number one, where you're just going to use the layers exactly as they are. Now, if all of these little white lines really bother you, you could put your stencil back over and try to line it up a little bit better than what I did. Or what you could do is you could take your white jelly roll, get it rolling. And I think in the inner circle, Ellen posted a really great post from Gina K today on how to keep your jelly roll running well. I'm just going to add some highlights here to my mountains. Maybe come down here. And what that does is it makes those white lines that were mistakes actually look like they are part of the design. And maybe I'm going to just do some lines here on the water.
Like snow on the treetops.
It could be snow on the treetops. It could simply be sun reflections. And there you go. So that's just added little bits of highlights, but it gives it that much more realistic kind of look. And if it were me, I would probably take some really good black, my VersaFine, and stamp my sentiment right here on this mountain where you've got that big blue space. So that is version number one. Let's do version number two. So once again, I'm going to go back in. I'm going to do my black. So let's see if we can do a bit better job of lining this up. Like so. Get everything stuck down. And for the big area, I'm going to use the big tool and just fill in these trees. Now, what I'm going to do with this one, I want to give it somewhat I'm going to call it a comic book look. If you have ever read a comic book or a graphic novel, all of the images, at least in the traditional way of things, all of the images are black outline images colored in. So, I bet I've got you all confused.
Yep.
Matt says yes. I know he's confused, even though he is a big comic book fan. Okay, before I move on, I am going to wipe the black ink off the stencil here because my next two, I'm not using ink. Okay, so let's get this all cleaned off. All right, so where on the first one, we went in with a white marker. So there we go. There's number two. Beautiful, beautiful. What I'm going to do this time, and I had trouble finding Okay, I'm going to start with a black journaling pen. I just happen to have the Memento one here. I want something with more of a bullet tip. So that one may not be working super well.
I think it's dead. That's better.
That one's better. Or do I go with my Copic? You know what? I'm going to stick with Plan A, which is my Copic marker. So what I'm going to do this time is I am actually going to follow the outline. And with this brush tip, I don't want a ton of pressure. I just want a nice even line following my mountain. Well, see if I can. The chisel tip is a little bit firmer, so this might be a case. There we go. And now I'm going to go in like this and follow my mountain. I'm going to close it off. So what this does is it gives it a little bit more of a graphic look. It's a little less blended. It's giving that really cool comic book look. And then go in here. And you know what? I'm gonna, let's see. Oh, gotta do this here. And maybe this is where you'd want something finer. And I'm just moving quickly here. So you would probably be a little bit more careful, but again, comic books don't always have super fine detail. Let's come in here. There any questions yet, Matt, or is everything good?
No, apparently I was the one who didn't understand. There was a couple people who knew what you were talking about.
Oh, okay.
Now that other people are starting to catch on too.
Now we're catching on.
Yeah.
So there's kind of our comic book look. Because this black marker is a little bit darker, I don't want to do it tonight because I don't want to spend too much time. I may get a finer pen and just darken up those birds that are flying across there. But then this is where it would be fun to bring in our little mountain llama. And I just grab a foam square.
Huh?
Matt says,
Where'd
huh?
the llama come from?
Llama is from our Lawn Fawn giveaway. And the Lawn Fawn images have kind of that cutesy graphic look as opposed to being hyper realistic. So you know what? I don't know. You may like this, you may not, but I think that's kind of cute. And maybe I'll even put in my sentiment here. Find a block. There's one. And my VersaFine. And we're going to say it's amazing. So there you go. Completely different look. Doing pretty much exactly the same steps that we had done for number one until that little finishing element, creating that graphic look. Now, if you wanted to, again, with a finer journaling pen, you could go in and add, again, some reflections to the water. And if you were super careful, you could even do a lighter blue kind of behind the back if you want to give it a sky. But that's option number two. Okay, I promised you four though. So let's go to number three. Number three.
We're already over half an hour.
Matt says I'm already over my time, but that's okay. We're just going to keep rolling with it. All right, number three. I am going to play with a little bit of stencil butter, and I am going to do some water, and then I am going to do the trees in black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going back to number one. number one here, and I'm lining everything back up. Let me get my tape like this and like this. And what I want to be careful of, actually, I'm going to leave that tape there because we're going to need it down below. What I want to be careful of is I do not want anything up here on this mountain. I'm only playing with the water here. So I'm going to mask it off with little pieces of tape along that edge. And I'm also going to be super careful. All right, so that's like this. For this, I'm going to take a little bit of my white and a little bit of the denim with a palette knife. Yes, I'm getting messy, guys. Can you believe it? All right, let me do it over here. So can you see it over here? So that's a little bit of the white.
You're on camera.
And I'm going to grab a baby wipe just to clean in between. So this is using the pearl white, white pearl, pearl white, and the denim blue. So I'm just going to take ever so little bit of the blue. And I'm going to start mixing it, but I don't want it completely blended. I want kind of that variegated look because now I'm going to come in and make water on my lake. And that water with the two stencil butter colors is going to, you know what, I'm feeling like I maybe have a little bit too much blue. I wish I had done a little bit more white, but let's see. And it's okay if it's not smooth and even because water is not always smooth and even. All right. Peel to reveal. So there's our water. Look how it shines. Look how it's got all those different colors. It's got a little bit of texture as well. I'm going to come back to this to do the black, but let's let it dry for a few minutes. I don't need this anymore, but I'm going to wipe it down because knowing me, I'll put something in it that's not supposed to be. And get rid of that. And actually, I am done with this as well. So we can scoop that off. And that'll go over in my wet trash. Okay, so we're going to move on to the black now. And this is where, first of all, I'm going to use that white journaling pen again to give some differentiation because our colors were very close together. So I'm really just following the line between the two. And I can outline this top part as well. So here's a question for you folks. I can either do the trees and the birds in black, or I can do them in white. What do you want me to try?
White.
Matt says white. The white might actually look really cool.
I got one vote for white so far. Gotta give it a minute to get.
We'll give you a minute to catch up as I finish. Just drawing some reflections here on the lake. Or you know what? I could do both. I could do black trees.
Well, the first 5 people responding say white.
Okay, people are saying white, then we'll do white.
6 people.
Okay.
7 people. I think
So,
it's unanimous.
I've done my white outline. I'm going to stick this back down. And here we go. Get this lined up. Maybe take some tape from up here. Reuse your tape. Don't Don't let it waste. And here, all right, we said white, so here is the white. And I'm just gonna scoop right from my jar, and I'm gonna come down from the top. Put a little something there in the little string of some sort.
Are you shedding on your stencils? Are you shedding with the stencil?
No, it's not. It's not a Sheri hair. It's just a little fiber from something. And then scoop. Now that's a Sheri hair. Make sure you get in all the nooks and crannies, but you don't want to have too much happening. All right, that is the white. Let's see. Let's see what the magic reveals. Ooh. Ah. So there you go. That does definitely look like snow-covered trees in the dark. I might have done it a little bit thicker here, but it gives that very kind of artistic look to it. And I love how the little birds, because they're the paste, you may not be able to see it, but they do have that raised element to it. So it definitely gives it texture, like they are flying right through that valley. All right, let's come back here. Actually,
you've done 4 things.
I've got to go back and finish my trees. My trees need to be black on my water scape. But I need to get rid of the white here. To clean these for real, when I'm done, is I usually just take them and run them under the tap. And if I need to give an extra little scrub, my scrubby soap is super gentle on these stencils, even in the intricate bits. And they clean super well. With the stencil butter, you do want to make sure that they get cleaned, because if they dry on your stencil, then it could affect just how you use it in the future. All right, so that is clean. Let's see how dry this guy is. It's still a little bit wet, so we're gonna bubble it. We're gonna heat it. We're gonna try and get it dry. Mind the noise. I actually don't want to bubble this because of the water. But if I go to put the stencil on it and it's not dry, well, obviously it's going to be all sticky. So if you were doing this at home, I would definitely say let it dry first. Okay, it's not too bad. It may not turn out perfectly, but here we go. We're going in. We're going in. Here we go. And black. Whoops. Okay, I'll have to get that later. The lid is under the counter. Now the black, you really don't need a lot. I love how the black goes on. It's just so shiny and luscious. And even though it's called butter, please don't eat it. It does not go well on your bagels. There we go. And the lid's underneath, that's right. All right, let's see if the water survived. Okay, it looks like I missed a tree spot. But there we go. We've got some nice dimension there. We've got the water still shiny. And if you really want to give those trees dimension, let's bubble them. So I'm just using my heat gun. It does work a little bit better if you let it sit to dry and get a bit of a skin on it. Oh, there we go. Getting some fun bubbles here. There we go. And I would probably keep going with this a little bit, but you can see that there's little bubbles forming and the paste is getting all textured and super fun. So there you have it. Same stencil, same basic supplies, 4 different fantastic looks for our stencil. Ink, white gel pen, comic book style, mixture of ink and paste, and then our night sky, let's call it, our silhouette, our twilight kind of look to that. So folks, that is it for me tonight for Learning Live. As I mentioned, this is the, what's it called? I think it's called the Layered Mountain Scene from TCW. There is also a forest scene, and there are 2 new scenes coming. But really, just feel free to dabble, to mix, to try different color combinations, and try adding some little accents that maybe you have never thought of or tried before. That's it for me. Let's let Matt get back to the hockey game. I'm going to crawl underneath my shelf here and get my stencil butter lid, clean up, and have a great evening. All the best, everyone. We will see you back here for What's New tomorrow night. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. We have some things that we're carrying over from Scrapfest that you might be interested in. So we'll see you tomorrow night. Good night, everyone.